I never imagined my life would resemble a tacky soap opera until Thanksgiving. It began with the clinking of glasses and the aroma of roasted turkey drifting through the living room. The table was dressed in a warm brown cloth, overflowing with traditional dishes. Our entire extended family had gathered at my parents' home in Portland. Aunt Carol had brought her signature pumpkin pie. My cousin Luke was at the head of the table, cracking jokes far too loudly. And me? I just sat there, quiet as always. No one offered help. No one asked about my job. They never really cared. I was cutting up mashed potatoes for my niece Ellie when a familiar voice pierced the air, sharp enough to freeze the entire room. Before we could even carve the turkey, "I have something to say," my sister Vanessa declared. She stood up, flashing a smile that was disgustingly sweet. Her hair was curled to perfection, nails painted a blood-red shade, and her voice sounded rehearsed, like she'd practiced in front of the mirror for hours. Everyone looked up, forks midair. I held my breath. "I think it's time we were all honest with each other," she began, scanning the room like a pageant queen about to announce a winner. "Last week, we took a vote." My father cleared his throat. My mother set down her wine glass, clearly eager. And the result? Vanessa inhaled theatrically, then turned to face me. "Isla, we've decided. You are no longer part of this family." The room fell silent. At first, I thought I misheard her. But then came the worst part. The table applauded. Actual clapping. Aunt Carol even whistled softly. Luke raised his glass like he was offering a toast. And my mother? She burst out laughing like it was the best joke of the night. Finally, someone said it. She commented casually, as if discussing the weather. I looked at my father. He didn't even glance at me, just gave a subtle shake of his head and murmured, "Maybe this is for the best." I sat frozen, my hand gripping the tablecloth's edge. The turkey on my plate still steamed, but I felt numb with cold. My throat tightened, not from sorrow, but from rage. Slowly, I pushed my chair back and rose in the smug silence. "You actually planned this," I said. Vanessa's smile widened, unmistakably triumphant. "You've always been a burden," she said. "So cold. So distant. Acting like you're above us." No one objected. They just nodded. Then I bent down, picked up my purse, and pulled out a thick folder. "If I'm no longer family," I said calmly, "then you won't be needing these." I placed the folder on the table. The sound was soft, but it sliced through the silence like a blade. Vanessa flinched. "What's this?" I crossed my arms and leaned back. "Why don't you take a look?" The second she flipped the first page, I saw it. The moment her smug grin shattered like glass on tile. Her face went pale. Her hands shook as she turned another page. Then she let out a sharp scream, loud enough to make little Ellie cry. Everyone jumped up. Joel, Vanessa's husband, grabbed the folder. Seconds later, he turned to me, his face drained of all color. Is this real?" he asked. I nodded. Every number, every message, every lie. The holiday table became a war zone of silence. Vanessa remained frozen, still trying to comprehend what she had seen. The folder lay open, pages now scattered on the floor from her trembling grip. No one spoke. The only sounds were the ticking wall clock and Ellie's soft sobs on Aunt Carol's lap. How did you get all of this?" Vanessa's voice was barely a whisper. I stepped forward. My voice, steady and composed, surprised even me. "Because I always knew you'd eventually cross a line you couldn't uncross." Joel picked up a fallen page. It showed a bank transfer, $2,800 taken from my account and moved to one under Vanessa's name, right after she'd sobbed about Joel losing his job. "And this?" he asked, voice low but cutting. 3 nights at the Grand Hill Hotel, charged to my card, booked under Alyssa Green. Vanessa opened her mouth but couldn't say a word. My mother tried to interrupt, but I raised a hand. "I'm not done." I bent down again, pulled out another set of papers, and slid them toward my father. "These are for you. A full breakdown of every dollar I spent covering your hospital bills after your fall last year. Itemized receipts included." My father stared at the documents. his face unreadable, though I noticed his hand trembled on the table. Then I turned to my mother. "And this," I continued, pulling out another paper, "is a screenshot of the $2,200 I wired you on March 14th to help with your urgent credit card debt." My mother leapt into defense mode. "Why are you bringing this up now? We're family. That money was given out of love." What kind of love mocks me, excludes me, and then votes me off the dinner table? I said, eyes fixed on hers. "Not one of you ever said thank you. None of you ever even thought to repay me. You didn't treat me like family. You treated me like a bank." I scanned the room. "You want me to be quiet, obedient, because I'm single, childless, and never complain. To you, I've never been anything but a walking wallet." Luke tried to intervene weakly. "Isla, maybe we shouldn't have clapped. We didn't realize it was this serious." I turned to him, tone razor sharp. "You applauded when they cut me off. You laughed when Vanessa humiliated me in front of Ellie. You stood by, silently, every single year I supported you all. Don't pretend you're innocent now." No one replied. Then I pulled out my phone, opened a voice recording, hit play. Vanessa's voice rang out crystal clear. She always acts so righteous. Cut the money and watch her crumble. No one loves her. No one would even miss her. Followed by the unmistakable sound of my mother laughing. I stopped the recording and set the phone down on the table. Vanessa's face went pale. "You were spying on me?"
"No," y replica calmly.
"You accidentally sent that recording to Laura while you were gossiping."
"She forwarded it to me."
"I saved it like I always do, because I don't forget." I turned toward my father. "You saw it all. You heard everything." He looked down, saying nothing. Vanessa clenched her fists and hissed, "You're terrifying, Isla. Who keeps track of all this like some paranoid freak?" I stepped forward, locking eyes with her. Someone who's been stabbed in the back too many times learns to remember and be ready. Joel turned to the final page, a financial breakdown showing exactly how much I'd given to everyone over the last 6 years, $64,500. He glanced at me, hesitating. "You kept all this because you expected something like this to happen?" I nodded slowly. I prayed it wouldn't, but I was prepared. Because people who genuinely care about each other don't hold a vote to exile someone from Thanksgiving dinner. I walked back to my seat, grabbed my coat, and slipped my arms through the sleeves. "I didn't ruin your holiday. I just finally showed up with the truth." As I turned to leave, Joel spoke softly behind me. "Isla, I need to know more. Everything in that folder, was it all real?" I stopped, hand resting on the doorknob, my back to them. "You want the details?"
"Fine."
I turned around, returned to the table, and gently opened the folder Joel still held. Flipping page by page, I pointed out each highlighted line, screenshots of bank transfers, confirmation emails, and text messages, some sweetly worded, others entitled, "The total." I said, voice firm but not angry, $81, 200 over 5 years. I tapped the pages as I spoke. $9,000 for Vanessa and Joel to start a nail salon. It shut down after 4 months. $5,600 for a new car for Dad when the old one couldn't make it to work. $3,200 for Mom, who said her card was hacked. But then she posted pictures from a Tahoe resort. My mother's eye twitched, but she didn't speak. Luke, $1,800, and then another $800 to retake an accounting class after he flunked. And here, I said, pointing again, $11 for 100 in medical expenses for Ellie when Joel claimed their insurance had lapsed. Later, I learned he'd just forgotten to renew the policy. Luke looked down. Joel turned red and shifted his gaze away. "And this part," I continued, flipping to another section showing messenger screenshots. "Vanessa sent this to cousin Laura. She's basically a walking ATM. No kids, no husband, no purpose except making money to prove she's not a failure." I looked straight at Vanessa. "You sent that to someone who once borrowed $2,000 from me for college."
She passed it along to me.
I saved it. The room was silent. Even the ceiling light flickered, as if recoiling from the truth being dragged into the open. "Dad," I said, turning to him. "Remember last April when you called me at night and said Mom urgently needed $2,500 for heart testing?" He gave a faint nod. "Well, at the same time," I said, pulling out another document and laying it down, "she was checked in at the Fairmont Sonoma, 3 nights, wellness spa, all paid with the card I just sent money to." My mother stood abruptly. "You're twisting this." I was under a lot of stress. I needed a break. And I needed basic respect. I replied, my voice level. But that never seemed to matter. I flipped to the final page, a summary table. Amounts, dates, recipients, purposes, and a repaid column. All marked no. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just stood there, in front of the people who once called themselves my family, and forced them to see what they'd chosen to ignore. You call me cold, emotionless. But I was the one keeping this family afloat for 5 years, while the rest of you only added burden and blame. Vanessa squinted at me. "You held on to all this to get revenge." "No," I replied. "I held on to it because I had hope. Hope that one day, someone would see all I had done. That love isn't just about what I can provide financially." I looked around the room slowly. But when you stood there and proudly announced that you voted me out, I knew that hope had died. Joel gave a small nod, not to Vanessa, but to me. "Thank you for helping me see the truth." I picked up the folder, folded it neatly, and slid it into my bag. "Now I've made my decision too." My mother's voice trembled. "Isla, you can't do this." I stepped backward, closer to the door. My final glance was no longer angry. It was hollow. "I'm not doing anything. I'm just done letting people hurt me." Joel still held the folder, eyes fixed on a page that was folded at the corner. He slowly opened it. As he reached the 3rd line, his expression darkened. "Vanessa," he whispered. "Who is Alyssa Green?" No one moved. Vanessa froze, her eyes flicking between Joel, me, and then our mother. "Why is her name on the hotel bill?" Joel asked louder, gripping the paper until it crumpled in his hand. "It's a misunderstanding," Vanessa stammered. "Just an old classmate. We went on a wellness trip, you know that." 3 nights at the Emerald Coast Hotel. Joel interrupted, each word like a blade. "Double occupancy. Champagne. 2-person spa package." Vanessa fell silent. I pulled another sheet from my coat pocket and handed it to Joel. "This is a screenshot of Alyssa's Instagram story from that same week. The room matches the hotel's promo. Same sheets. Same balcony view. Matching white robes." Then I swiped my phone and held up another screen. "This is a message Vanessa sent Alyssa. I found it on a shared iCloud account. I hadn't planned to reveal it. But when they tried to erase me, like I never existed, I had to remind them I see everything." Joel scrolled through the messages, then froze at one line. "Joel won't find out. He's too busy running the shop. You're the one I want beside me." The air in the room grew heavy. Luke set down his fork, unaware that gravy was dripping onto his shirt. My mother opened her mouth as if to speak, then shut it again. "So, this is what you were doing while accusing me of not being emotionally supportive enough?" Joel asked, still glaring at Vanessa. Her voice faltered. "You're misinterpreting." "Misinterpreting what?" "That you used my credit card to reserve a hotel room and wrote these words." Joel held up the printout, his hands shaking so violently it nearly tore. "You called Isla a controlling freak when you're the one pulling all the strings." "Joel, I just felt so alone. You were always gone and You chose to betray me," he shouted, his voice finally rising above all others. "And then you had the audacity to insult the only person here who stood by you." Vanessa's face turned pale. I stood silently, no smirk, no satisfaction, just deep sadness. Because this unfolded exactly as I had feared. When the truth is buried too long, its exposure doesn't just wound, it topples everything. My mother stepped closer to Joel, her voice shaking. "This shouldn't have come out at the dinner table." I looked at her calmly. "And when you laughed as they announced I was voted out, that wasn't inappropriate." You don't understand, Isla. She tried to steady her voice. Everyone was under pressure, and I'm the only one who's not allowed to react. I interrupted. All these years I stayed quiet, sending money, following orders, tolerating it all. But the moment I speak up, I become the problem. My father stayed silent.
He always did.
Not once had he defended me, not even with a look. Joel sank into his chair, burying his face in his hands. I don't know who I can trust anymore. I softened my tone. You still have yourself. That's the first thing I had to learn, too. The room was silent again, this time not from tension, but from the dawning realization that the truth was no longer avoidable. Vanessa turned to me, her eyes blazing. You just wanted to tear this family apart, didn't you? You're happy watching us collapse. I shook my head slowly.
No.
I'm just exhausted from always being the one to repair the damage you all create. I walked toward the door once more.
But no one moved to stop me.
Behind me, I heard Joel flip another page in the folder. Vanessa, what about the apartment in Austin? He asked quietly, though loud enough for everyone to hear. I didn't need to wait for her response. Because now, they were the ones who had to confront everything they'd buried. I didn't look back. My hand reached for the doorknob, but I paused, not from regret, just from the need to do one last thing I'd postponed far too long. I opened my bag and pulled out a large, cream-colored envelope. On the corner, a small note was written. The day has come. I turned back to the table, my expression no longer angry, only firm. This, I said, placing the envelope at the center, is so none of you will need to call, text, or write me asking for help again. My mother frowned. Layla, what is this? Read it. Joel picked it up and pulled out the stack of documents inside. I saw his face change almost instantly. He flipped through the pages rapidly, then stared at me, stunned. You already signed everything? I nodded. I've officially revoked all legal authority tied to anyone in this family, from financial power of attorney to emergency medical contact. Everything. I turned to my mother. I'm no longer listed on your medical records. If you're hospitalized, they won't call me. If something happens to Dad, I'm no longer the guarantor. She jumped up from her seat. What are you saying? That's your duty, as a family member.
No, y replía calmly.
It was my responsibility, back when I believed I was still part of this family. But you all voted, remember? I'm not family anymore. Luke stood, his voice wavering. Isla, you're going too far. I offered a faint smile. I'm just doing what you all always wanted, making things clear.
No, Thais. No obligations.
I turned to my father, who had remained motionless, like a statue the entire time. You once told me I work like a machine, cold, without emotion. But did you ever ask yourself why? Because you taught me that the second I slowed down or showed weakness, no one would protect me. He said nothing, just stared blankly into the glass of water in front of him, now long gone cold. But you can't do this, my mother whispered. You're my daughter. No matter what, family is still family. I shook my head, eyes steady and unnervingly calm.
No, Mom.
Family protects each other. They don't organize secret votes to exile someone, then cheer when it's done. Real family doesn't place conditions on love. Real family doesn't treat one of their own like a walking wallet. Vanessa, who had stayed silent until now, suddenly stood up and pointed a finger at me. You act like you're so noble, but you're just trying to control everything. You like having all the power, don't you? I stared right back at her. Wrong, Vanessa. I'm reclaiming my freedom, my right to live without being dragged into this cycle of demands, fakery, and lies. Joel spoke, his voice subdued, as if finally waking up. So from now on, you're cutting all ties with them? I nodded. Officially, on paper and in my heart. I picked up my coat and headed toward the door again. This time, not a single word was spoken to stop me. I opened the door and stepped out. The early winter wind in Portland stung my face, but I didn't flinch. For the first time in years, I felt weightless. I crossed the front yard slowly, my shoes sinking slightly into the damp earth left by recent rain. The wind rustled the maple tree near the porch like the house itself was exhaling, finally seeing someone choose to walk away instead of sitting through one more moment of the same. And when I got into my car and shut the door, I glanced into the rearview mirror. The house I once considered a home now resembled nothing more than an empty shell. Beautiful on the outside, decayed on the inside. I fastened my seatbelt, started the engine, and didn't look back. 2 days after Thanksgiving night, my phone began vibrating nonstop. The first message was from my mother. "You can walk away, but you'll always be my daughter. Don't make this more painful than it has to be. We can fix this if you just open your heart." I didn't reply. I didn't delete it either. I left it there as a reminder of the same old pattern. When they need something, I magically become their beloved daughter again. That afternoon, I received a call from an unknown number. No contact name, no hint. Something told me to ignore it, but curiosity got the best of me. "Is this Isla?" a male voice asked, slightly breathless. "This is Ben, Joel's lawyer. He asked me to notify you that you are the primary witness if his divorce from Vanessa goes to court." I paused. "He actually filed today," Ben added. "He submitted the complete set of documents you left behind." I ended the call and stood still in my living room. The lamp was still on from the previous night. A photo of me and little Ellie from our hiking trip 3 years ago sat on the TV stand. That day, Vanessa had gone away for a weekend spa retreat, so I took Ellie instead. She smiled the entire ride back. Now I wonder, was it ever really a spa trip? Or just another excuse? That evening, I got a text from Luke. "Isla, I didn't realize things were that serious. I'm sorry for staying silent. I was scared, but I know you were the only one who ever truly helped this family." Below was a smaller, more hesitant line. "Our cousin just lost his job. Any chance you could help with his rent for a couple months?" I locked my screen. My heart didn't ache like it used to, just a faint exhaustion. Oddly, the silence no longer frightened me. It had become a shield, guarding me from apologies that came with conditions. On the 4th day, Natalie sent an email. Yes, my sister, using oddly formal language for the first time in years. "Isla, regardless of what has occurred between us, I hope you understand that others are being affected too. Joel moved out. Ellie keeps asking where he is. Mom cries all day. I'm not asking for anything, just hoping you'll say something to calm the family. They won't survive if you keep shutting them out." Then a small postscript. "Mom's having trouble with the mortgage. The bank is requesting a cosigner to avoid foreclosure." I closed the email without rereading it. I've come to understand this much. A true apology doesn't come with an attachment. On the 5th day, I received a voicemail from my father. I never saved his number, but that dry, gravelly voice was unmistakable. "Isla, this has gone too far. Your mother can't sleep. Vanessa's losing her mind. You need to come back. Talk like an adult. Don't let one small thing turn you into a stranger." A small thing? $78,000. Being voted out of my own family. Being called cold. Being betrayed, insulted, used, and dismissed. A small thing. I didn't respond, but I didn't erase it either. I kept it, just like they keep pretending I was wrong for simply walking away. The following week, I got a handwritten letter. No return address, but I recognized my mother's handwriting. 3 pages. Blue ink. Desperate tone. Page 1, apologies, repeated over and over. She never meant to hurt me. Page 2, updates. Dad's back pain worsening. Vanessa left by Joel. Ellie crying for me every night. Page 3, an offer. If I helped cover the rest of the mortgage, they'd transfer the house title to my name. So, you'll feel secure that your money's not going to waste. I placed the letter on the table, stood up, walked straight to the trash bin, lifted the lid, and dropped it in, without flinching. I finally understood. They don't want me back. They want the old version of me back. The one who smiled, nodded, said yes to everything, fulfilled every request, and never asked why. But she's gone. She doesn't exist anymore. She left on a crisp, cold Monday morning. Sunlight poured through the windows of my old apartment. No one knew. No one saw me off. No goodbyes. And for the first time, I felt truly at peace. The new city isn't far, about a 3-hour drive from Portland, in a lakeside town in Washington. I didn't choose it for the view. I chose it because no one here knows who I am. No one calls me Layla when they need money. No one messages me at midnight with emergencies followed by bank details. The new apartment is smaller but cozy. Wooden beams, wide windows that catch the morning sun, and a little kitchen where I make my own coffee instead of rushing out for a latte. I began again. Not bitter, just quietly relieved. My old job had drained me. An executive finance role with a 6-figure salary, but it cost me sleep and a life eaten away by unspoken expectations. I resigned as cleanly as someone removing a deeply embedded knife from their chest. Now, I work part-time as a financial advisor for a nonprofit that supports single women. No sales targets. No late-night emails. No one asking, "Can you just cover one more thing?" Just real people, with real stories. And me, for the first time in years, feeling valued, not used. I started therapy, not because I collapsed, but because I wanted to understand myself better. My therapist, Dr. Allison, has kind eyes and a calm presence. She made it easier than I expected to say. I used to think if I stopped helping, I'd stop mattering. I began jogging every morning. Every step felt like peeling away another layer of pressure. I learned to cook, baked for the first time from a recipe I had bookmarked and ignored for years. I lit candles, not to mask the stale smell of an old place, but simply because I wanted to. But because I cherished the fragrance. One afternoon, I ran into Ava, an old college friend who had drifted away because I was constantly wrapped up in family matters. She'd seen my name in an article about healing from toxic relationships. We met for afternoon tea, and I didn't expect to laugh that much during a first reunion after so many years apart. "Isla," Ava said as we stepped out of the cafe, "you're still kind, but now you know who's actually worthy of that kindness." When I got home, I turned on my computer and updated my entire emergency contact list. No more Mom. No more Vanessa. I added Ava. Not because she relied on me, but because I knew she'd be there if I genuinely needed someone. One Saturday afternoon, while reorganizing the books on my shelf, I came across an old photo, me and Ellie, hand in hand, atop a small hill, her hair swept by the wind. I softly touched the frame, a sharp ache blooming in my chest. I still remembered that little girl. I just couldn't recall who her mother used to be before she turned into a stranger. I placed the photo into a wooden box and locked it, not to forget, but to preserve it. A piece of memory that didn't need to be erased, but no longer needed to haunt me either. No more surprise messages. No more late-night calls. No more envelopes marked urgent. No more sinking dread every time the phone vibrated. And oddly, in that quiet, I heard my own voice clearer than ever. I hadn't lost my family. I had only lost the people pretending to be one. Now, I live not to serve anyone, not to prove anything, but simply to exist as myself. And for the first time in years, when I looked into the mirror, I saw a woman who no longer strained to preserve a version of family that never really existed. That Christmas came on a day covered in snow. I spent it alone in my new apartment, the fireplace casting a soft golden glow. No tree, no festive music, but also no sighs from my mother, no judgmental looks from Vanessa, no urgent calls from Dad saying his car had broken down on the freeway. I drank hot cocoa, read a vintage novel, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel lonely. I felt calm. On the morning of December 26th, I found a handwritten note in the communal mailbox. No sender's name, but I recognized the neat, rounded handwriting. It felt like a dull knife running over an old scar. It was from my mother. I didn't open it immediately. I left it on the table for 3 days under the soft glow of the lamp beside the couch, a test of my resolve. Then, on New Year's Eve, I opened it. Isla. The first page was syrupy. She wrote that she couldn't stop thinking about me, that this year's Christmas felt eerily cold without me at the table, with no one to cut the pumpkin pie just the way Dad liked it. The second page took a different tone. Vanessa's really having a hard time, sweetheart. Joel finalized the divorce. The bank sent notice. They're seizing the apartment. Ellie's impacted. She misses Aunt Isla. She doesn't understand why you vanished like that. The last page turned into a request. Your father's health is deteriorating. I just took him for an MRI, and the results weren't promising. We need a bit of help covering what insurance didn't. I hate bringing up money, but you're the only one still standing strong in this family. I folded the letter quietly. Just sat there, listening to the ticking of the clock and the distant pop of fireworks. On New Year's Day, I received a message from Luke. Happy New Year, Isla. No matter what, I hope you're healthy and doing well. By the way, Vanessa asked if you knew anyone renting a 2-bedroom apartment. Cheap is fine. You know she's going through a rough patch. I didn't respond. By mid-January, another envelope arrived, this one from Dad. The handwriting was angled, almost harsh. Layla. No greeting, no warm words, just straight to the point. We're refinancing the house. Your mother tried negotiating, but the bank insists on a co-signer. If you agree, you'd only need to sign, no payments required. We'll keep the house, and no one will have to relocate. Please. At the bottom, he added, no matter what, you're still family. Don't let bitterness lead to something that can't be undone. I folded the letter and set it beside my mother's. Didn't rip it up. Didn't throw it away.
Just left it there.
On Valentine's Day, I received a package with no return address. Inside was a candle, the same scent I used to buy myself each year. A small card came with it. But Isla, I miss how your room used to smell. Do you still use candles? I know you're upset with Mom and Grandma, but I still remember you. I still want your pancakes again. I sat for an hour, the candle unlit, the card untouched, my eyes fixed on the handwriting of an 8-year-old who couldn't grasp the weight of grown-up pain. I loved Ellie. I'd never said it out loud, but I loved her with a softness I never allowed myself. But I also knew this. I couldn't soften my heart for a child only to be pulled back into the same old cycle, where every emotion was leveraged, where every act of care became a financial transaction.
They weren't sorry.
They were short on funds, and short on the version of me who used to say yes, wire money, and smile while being labeled different. I wasn't that person anymore. I didn't hate them, but I had stopped begging for love from people who treated family ties like emotional debt collection. I picked up the candle, turned it slowly in my hands, then placed it back in the box, sealed it, and mailed it to the old address, along with a note. I still use candles. But I don't live in the dark anymore. In March, I received a call from an unknown number while watering my balcony plants. I let it ring until it stopped, then silenced it. Not out of fear, but because I no longer felt required to listen. That afternoon, I took my usual walk around Cedar Lake. The sky was a soft blue, the air cool, and the water reflected a sky untouched by clouds. A group of children played near the hill's edge, their laughter echoing like the childhood I thought I never had. I sat on my usual bench beside an elderly woman knitting, her silver hair glinting in the sunlight. She nodded at me, then gazed out at the lake. I see you here often, she said, her voice calm and warm. Looks like you're learning how to breathe again. I chuckled.
Yeah.
I used to think I was breathing fine. Turns out, I'd been holding my breath for years, trying to be what everyone else expected. She didn't ask anything else. She didn't have to. She simply nodded. Then hold on to that air. Don't ever let anyone take it from you again. I didn't need strangers to grasp my entire story. Sometimes, a warm glance is more than enough to bring healing. And deep down, I knew I was reaching the conclusion of one chapter and stepping into the start of another. A few weeks later, I received an invitation to speak at a small seminar focused on women's mental health and financial independence. The organizer had come across my anonymous essay online, the one I thought no one would care to read. But truth, it seems, travels farther than I ever imagined. I agreed. The event was held in a modest library hall. No spotlight, no elegant seating, just about 30 women, some holding babies, others jotting notes, all listening carefully as I told my story, The overlooked money transfers, the insincere hugs at family dinners, and the hardest decision I had ever made, leaving people I was biologically tied to in order to save myself. When I finished, a young woman rose to her feet, her eyes shining with tears. "I thought I was the only one who ever felt this way," she said. "Thank you for voicing what I never had the courage to say." I stepped down and hugged her. For the first time, I truly understood what it meant to give without being drained. That evening, I walked home past the little bakery where the owner still remembered my favorite treat after only one visit. I bought a slice of cinnamon apple pie and strolled down the short block to my apartment. The late spring air carried floral notes and faint acoustic tunes from the nearby cafe. I opened the door, turned on the lights, and the room filled with calm. No phones ringing with expectations. No emails marked urgent. No one blaming me for changing. I sat on the floor beside my new bookshelf, where I had neatly stored the old letters in a tin box. I didn't burn them. I didn't toss them out. I kept them like artifacts, not to relive, but to remind myself never to return. I used to think freedom meant being accepted by family. Now I know true freedom lies in walking away from those who only call you family when they need rescuing. I no longer live to satisfy others. I live to feel serenity when I rest my head at night, with no unspoken apologies or unpaid emotional debts. I live to laugh when joy rises, to cry softly when pain comes, and to breathe deeply, unafraid of being abandoned. I live not to validate my worth anymore, but simply because I deserve to live fully. And if you ask whether I regret it, I'd say I only regret not letting go sooner. Layla's story stands as a powerful reminder that blood relations are never a license to manipulate, diminish, or use someone for personal convenience. Sometimes, real freedom isn't found in clinging to family, but in having the strength to walk away from those who only wear the title. Isla didn't choose to be cold. She chose to be compassionate toward herself. And the day she set her boundaries was the day she truly began to live, peacefully, purposefully, and without apology. What do you think about Isla's decision? Was she too harsh, or was it the only way to guard her peace? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more moving family stories.